This game is going to be the death of me. Like, the absolute death of me. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Darkest Dungeon, where we are right there for finishing this game. But first, I want to say, it dawned on me while I was playing. This game is regularly on sale for like $5. I think it was on sale for £3, like a couple of days ago. To getting your money's worth out of this, like time per hours per pennies, is ridiculous because it's brutal, it's nasty, and it just, when it sets you back, it cuts your legs off. And there's a drive, at least with how I like to play games, where you just feel that you have to just beat it. Oh, you did this to me? Well, I'm going to beat you to death because of this. I'm going to beat you down, and I'm going to just slaughter you for what you did. And that's what happened. So we are on the cusp of finishing the game in terms of defeating the final mission of the Darkest Dungeon. We had 2 missions to do. And mission 3 of the 4 was a new game mode called Exhaustive Mode. And there's short missions, medium missions, long missions, and then a new one called Exhaustive, which had the ability to camp 4 times. So I was really wary of who I wanted to take into this. I thought, right, okay, I definitely want a Jester. Found the love of the Jester, and because they can constantly reduce the stress. And if we're going to be in there for a really long time, keeping our stress levels low in the Darkest Dungeon is probably a really good idea. And then I fleshed the rest of the team out with an Occultist. We took Baby Eleonora, who was born during our Darkest Dungeon streams, into as our healer. I've become a big fan of Occultists. I started early game with Vestals because they're kind of straight up heal bots. But I'd grown more and more fond of the Occultist because although their healing is a roll of the dice as to what they'll do, they have so much more utility. They can debuff the targets, lower their protection, lower their ability to dodge. They can do decent... they do have what I think is what I've seen, like one of the best stuns in the game. So they can be super effective. They're like such a multi-class support. So I rolled with that and some damage dealers. I was like, that's the way I'm going to go. And also, kind of, these are my remaining level 6s. It's a kind of my remaining level 6s. So, it is what it is. I think that's the team I took. I'm trying to think back, because I've done a lot since we last spoke. So, it might have actually been like an off-healer type role. But I strapped in. I decided loot is so unimportant for what we're about to do. So, I just filled my inventory with food, torches, anything to remove debuffs, bleeds, everything. I just took... That was my goal. And in we went. Now, I tried to apply logic to this mission. Because it's an exhaustive mission, and with the Darkest Dungeon, you can't even scout really further than the next room ahead. You can't, like, get an extra scouting chance. You don't get a map layout or anything like that. And so, after fighting a couple of packs, which weren't too bad, and then coming up against this monstrosity, which was a much tougher enemy, and overcoming that, the ad that remained just walked up and teleported me. And I was like, oh, I get it. This thing's going to teleport me randomly around the map. So it actually teleported me. I guess from the way the map looked, I was in the top left, and it teleported me to the bottom right of the map. I was like, okay. My working theory is that usually, like, if we do a boss mission, the boss is the furthest away from the entrance. So I actually thought maybe I'd got lucky. And the boss, whatever it is we're looking for, I had to activate a thing. It was probably in the bottom right-ish area, because we were definitely at the border. So I started to explore that border and worked my way north, because I was like, well, we'll stay on the right, because that's still the furthest away from the entrance. And realized it was a bunch of dead ends. So I then started to, like, rethink. It's like, okay, what if... Because I hadn't fought any of the really big scary enemies on the outskirts of the map. I was like, I think it actually wants us to get to the middle. And the difficulty here is that we're going to keep getting teleported back out to the further edge if you get teleported at all. So I was like, I think we have to go through the middle. And then the picture of what they designed kind of formed in my head. It's like, I bet they have the outer border, which is relatively safe, not particularly scary enemies. And then there's like a circle which is surrounded by these stronger enemies, and then in the dead center will be what we're looking for, which may have like a boss-type enemy or something like that in it. That started to make sense, because we were being teleported to the outer edge. So, camped relatively regularly, just to make sure my team was in top shape, and started moving in. And sure enough, we started hitting these stronger and stronger enemies, which was made sense what we were doing. So I was trying to manage the not getting teleported, YOLOing a couple of plays, things like that, and making it work for me. And eventually, thankfully, much to the chagrin of the onlookers, I did make it to the center and completed, yet again, the 3rd mission. Great news. Great news. The final mission, my friends. We're on the final mission. And I take a look at it, and it's Kill, which has been renamed by our wonderful mod creator and editor, Chris, to the Landlord of Darkness, given my recent housing situation. And, yeah. I figured I needed to know what was in there. So my plan was to send somebody in to look at it and then escape. I know what you're thinking if you're familiar with this game is, Mike, you can't run away from the Darkest Dungeon. You're correct, and I did forget that. Poor Alandra, our Abomination, which I actually started to quite like, the Abomination. It makes a lot of sense. It causes a lot of stress on the party, but it's kind of a cool unit. I sent Alandra in to scout. Well, Alandra's doomed. I realized immediately. I was like, oh god, we can't run away. Poor Alandra, the Abomination, is doomed. But I did find out that the boss is the Ancestor. The final boss will be the Ancestor. And I'm not sure how this... I have many working theories from what I saw with Alandra. I saw that the boss spawns a bunch of clones of itself. The boss itself only has 5 HP, but seems practically immune to everything. And the ads are fully vulnerable to everything, but they do a nasty bleed. I think the bleed was ticking for like... I want to say 33 a round after 1 round, but it could have been something different because Alandra was only level 1 or something, and do massive stress damage. That was the knowledge I walked away with. I can kill ads, but likelihood is in a lot of boss fights we've seen, it just respawns ads. So I'm not sure. My theories right now are killing the ads damages the boss in some way. Or killing a certain amount of ads spawns something that damages the boss. I get the feeling I can't hurt the boss because it's only got 5 HP. And 5 HP probably means I have to do 5 things to hurt it. And given its resistance levels, it probably can't be hurt. Maybe it can. Because from what I've seen, even with massive amounts of protection on the enemies, it's still a dice roll. Like, if you have a high chance, you can kind of overcome that. But that's what I feel right now. But I also feel like it's probably multi-phased because 5 isn't a lot of ads. You can build a team that kills ads. But at this point, I've got no healers left at all. And then I got humbled hardcore because the debate has been, do we finish Darkest Dungeon when we do the finals mission, or do we have to kill every boss, despite the fact the only bosses remaining in the game are bosses we've killed before, but, you know, slightly more HP and shit. So I was debating that, but the bosses were up, and I had to do some runs. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll take my team and go and kill the drowned crew, because I'd never wiped on the drowned crew. It's simple enough. And died. Died badly. Poor Asira. Overconfidence. Overconfidence. But I will say this. Overconfidence is an insidious killer. It is. Like, if your party is not synergized well and you're not quite sure of the rules, especially if you had an easier fight versus the boss previously, you will get humbled pretty fast. But the game also does hurt. Like, personally. In your heart. And this happened in a run where we were just leveling up. I had to level up new healers. I had to, for the boss fight. I have no healers left, so I had to level them up. And I took this team out that was good, decent enough team that was fully capable of managing something. I think they were in a level 3 dungeon. And I'm chit-chatting away. We were actually talking about movies and things like that in the stream, so I'm like semi-paying attention, but it's not a difficult situation. The enemy then got 7 turns, or moves, whatever you want to call it, in a row. So it was the entire team and then another 3. Back to back. Without me being able to intervene in any way. And all targeted one guy. Baz. And just murdered him. Into the floor. As I just watched. I like the first 4 moves. I was like watching and I'm like, oh, okay. He went from practically full health and 0 stress. And then I looked and he's like, half health and like nearly full stress. I'm like, what is going on here? And then they just got another. It just went Death's Door, and then the next move was Death Blow, and that was it. I didn't even get to. I just had to watch as poor Bass got battered into the floor. And it was like, this mean. Just mean and nasty and vicious and horrible and so mean. And I will say in this like 3-hour period, I lost 3 players over and over again, which was really nasty. And then it gives you like a reprieve, because then the next runs went really well, and I got a new healer who started at level 2 to level 5 like relatively quickly, so they're ready to go into the final mission in our next video, which will probably be the final video of the Darkest Dungeon, to be honest with you. Because we are there, assuming I can kill the boss and it doesn't do something horrible later on, which it might do. It might do. We'll see where that goes. But I then was like, I've lost trinkets, and I needed to... And then the Shrieker popped up, because like, hey, you can get 8 of your trinkets back. And I was like, oh, well, I now know about the Shrieker, right? The Shrieker, it can't really kill you unless you get very unlucky, so you don't need to heal. But it has 63 dodge. So hitting it is the problem. So I was like, right, I'll build a squad where it's anti-dodge. So I stacked accuracy, I stacked dodge debuffs, and I still couldn't kill it. I mean, you still complete the mission without killing it, but you don't get, like, I assume you get a sick bonus reward. I have killed the Shrieker in the past, I just can't remember what I got. And I couldn't do it. In this day alone, this was a dark day. I'm smiling because I think we're going to go for the last boss. And we did get Mission 3 done of the Darkest Dungeon. But at the same time, I lost so many players and got humbled hardcore again. And couldn't overcome things that I should have been able to overcome pretty easily. Like, overconfidence is a problem, but I should have been able to defeat them, and I didn't. I tried again versus the drowned crew and failed again. Like, I just ended up getting collected and all sorts of stuff, and faced some of the nastiest trash packs you've ever seen. All in a big row. All in a big row. I feel happy and beaten by this game. But I will say this. There's one more journey to go on, and that will be our next video, so tune in next time, because I think we might have completed our little road. So thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.